Welcome to Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective podcast, where we meet experts from all walks of life to learn their intrinsic motivation so that they can share it with the world. What do we have in store today? Stay tuned to find out more. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. You are in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
And today we have our wonderful guest, Sana Brauner. She is from Vienna, and she's going to talk about a really good, inspiring story. She was in the 2004 tsunami and had a lot of change, if you will. I'll let her explain in greater detail. But a lot of change, and I think this podcast is going to be about perspective. David and I have been talking offline about, oh, man, I was stuck in traffic today, or my flight was late, these smaller things that we kind of gripe about. And Sana is going to talk about something that's happened to her, and very inspirational, I believe. Without further ado, calling from Vienna, we have Sana to our podcast. Welcome, Sana.
Hi, good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Yes, our pleasure. And you've written a book called The Borrowed Daughter, and we've had people come on, and it's taken a year to write a book. It's taken 5 years to write a book. It's taken a lifetime to write a book. And I think your book is probably an ongoing living and breathing document that was actually published recently. I'd like for you to, before going into your book, talk about the purpose of writing your book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, to write a book was for me there are several reasons. And I would say the first main reason it was my therapy. And I gave my story a meaning by writing the book, which I feel can help many people to understand also their story, because my story is but I feel like everybody of us come with a purpose and have their own story, but sometimes we forget and we get caught up in, like you said, like small things, and then we think it's great, it's something big. So one thing is like, okay, it was for me a therapy. The other thing is also I was chief editor of a newspaper. So writing is something what is always I used to, and I got really familiar with. So to sit down and write the book it was a long process. I started 1 year after the happening, and it took me 10 years later, almost 12 years later, to finish the book, actually.
Yeah, I'm wondering, with a background as a chief editor of a newspaper, I believe you're taught to write objectively about any story, not to put any emotion to it. And something you've gone to was definitely close to your heart. So was that part of it, where you were constantly editing from a parent's perspective versus a chief editor's perspective?
Do you ask about being while I was a chief editor, or by writing a book? What is the question?
Yeah, I'm trying to frame your process for writing the book. As a chief editor of a newspaper, you pretty much have to write objectively, right, for any type of subject. But since this is so close to you, was it a challenge to write it from a parent's perspective versus constantly using your chief editor hat?
Mm-hmm. The point is, there is no choice. In a way of when you go through something like this, you feel yourself just in pain, and there is no way that you can. For me, it was like this. I don't know, maybe it would be different, but for me, it was like, actually, I stopped working as a chief editor. I stopped totally. I had also the father of Alexander is the son, and Alexandra-Anita the daughter. So it was for us like really like we had to stop to make a kind of new orientation, because it happened actually in such a dramatic way, the change in our life, that, and then starting the book, just to answer your question, it was totally only emotionally. It was absolutely just, I just wrote, while I was writing, I was not anymore human, I was just a prayer who was going to connect and to really write it's very emotional. It's really from a parent who goes through unbelievable pain at the same time with a belief, that there is in everything what happens in your life, there must be a bigger picture behind. There is no way. So it's kind of like I helped myself by connecting to this higher power, and I got so much guidance. So that's why I also can say today, I feel I really have to give something.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'd like to talk a little bit about, since you kind of led into it, where you said that life is bigger than what we can imagine in many respects. If you don't mind going through how we have a typical day. I wake up, I'm going to have breakfast, and then get the family ready. And I believe you were on vacation, so would you like to walk us through that day, or we can approach it from any way you want to?
Right. So the point is we have been on holiday in a 5-star hotel in Kaulak. It's a beautiful beach close to a national park, so it was a little more remote. It was not that much developed touristically. It was, and it means like Helmut, the father of my ex-husband, Alexander, that time almost 6-year-old, Alexandra-Anita, at that time 2.5-year-old, the daughter. So my sister with her son, who is 8 years old, my mom, and then we had friends with their children, 16-year-old and the girl, and 24, the boy. So it's sunny day. You just had Christmas the night before. It was like beautiful celebrating, it's like, and we just take it easy, have breakfast, at the restaurant. The restaurant is at the beach, so it's like a beautiful view. You're just like, everything is fine, and so everybody decides to do something different, somehow. So it's around 10 o'clock in the morning, and the father of the other one, he went to a jeep safari, and Helmut with the boys, my sister's son and our son, he went, just swimming. It was the pool from this hotel was at that time the biggest pool in Asia. It was a huge pool like channels, it was like going totally around every bungalow, and you could go from the room direct, if you are on the ground floor, in the swimming pool, and you would just swim to the front, to the beach, and, go back. So it was like really beautiful. So he went, already to the room by water, swimming there. And I was a little bit sitting down with my sister and my mom and the little daughter. And so we are chatting, have a good time. And then I said, you know what? I will go bring all our swimsuits, because we didn't have the bikini with us. And as it takes like almost 10 minutes, because it was a really big hotel, to go to the room, I said, you just stay here, and I go bring everything, and I come back with the boys and Helmut and So I go to the room. As I arrive in the room, and I go on the balcony where the pool is in front of me, and the boys are opposite on kind of an island in the pool, it made like, and they had like a slide where they were been there, and Helmut was just in front in the water, and I just said, let's just go take our swimming stuff and go to the beach. And I was not, finishing actually this sentence. Suddenly from nowhere. It was just nowhere because, there is water coming, just water and it's like so fast. Everything happens. There is nothing like time anymore. And I got plugged back in the room, and in the next moment, the room is full with water, and I just, see, it's interesting in the book, I really explain it very, very slowly and detailed what everything has happened, because it was like somehow the time, everything happened in, I don't know, thousands of seconds, and at the same time I could realize, well, I'm in room, the room is full with water, there is no escape, but at that next moment I got thrown out. It was so, huge, the mass of water and the power, it's just unimaginable. And I got somehow thrown out, but being in the water, not knowing where I am, not knowing, just, like when you're in a washing machine and you got cut up and your whole body back down, you have no way, where it's up, where it's down, and I just try to get out, no way. So suddenly, you're just in the water, and you just feel like, okay, that's it, that's it. And then I had this kind of near-death experience where I could just not do any. I had just to give up and to let go. It's like, okay, that's the way how you die. And that's what it is. So I just, there was nothing, there was no thinking. It was like, but at that moment, right now, something happened, like it was like two sanas. It was, and around myself, I was in a different dimension. It was like everything got quiet. Everything got peaceful, silent. It was like totally, me and nobody else, just silence. And then I hear this voice, and it's my voice asking myself, Sana, do you want to live? And I'm like, yes. I can hear myself answering yes. And just having said yes, everything started again. It's like I get washed and I get thrown. It gets loud because at some point it's in the water, but it's loud, and you just like. And at some point, somehow I am on the surface of the water, and the thing is like I look up, and then I see the hotel is around half a mile. I'm out of the hotel and towards the land. And the next what it is, there is like a van, a big truck, beside me floating in the water, and I grab the mirror, the side, of the, and just to, just rest a little, because I was like, this is the end of the world that time. It was like for me, like there's no way, because you're on holiday, have a beautiful time, and then just like, and so this is where actually I came out of the water, and the first thing, I don't know from where it came, somehow I had to express and just to say it out loud, like, thank you. And not that I really understood why or whatever, but at the end, what happened, it's like, just to make it short, because it's really, it's like sometime, later, after being a while out, not having no clue what's happening, trying, to come on a tree to hold myself and to climb somehow out of the water, because I had to let go the truck, and the mirror, because it started to sink and to flood away. So I had to look for something else, so I didn't, because I was, the water was bringing me towards like a forest, and I was like, okay, this speed and everything, I will get smashed in this old tree and everything. So I kind of helped myself to grab, stuff what was hanging around trees, beds, televisions, cars, everything. I grabbed on something to just not being flooded anymore, and climbed up, to see and to get a little bit rest out of the water, to do something. But it was very, very, I was like, Anyway, just to make it laugh, at the end of the day, we are here Helmut, my sister's son, Alexander, and I saw my sister, I came back, my sister, I could see her alive, and she was brought with the ambulance, to somewhere, we had no clue where, because people, and I did not know where my mom is, and I did not know where Alexandra-Anita is. And the only thing, what I got as a message, and this started, I realized later on, actually, with this happening of myself being just for a moment on the other side, that voices came to me, and it's like, your mom took this as a possibility to go. And for Alexandra-Anita, it came like, there is nothing what you can do now, but no, just to let you know, it's going to be taking care of her. So this is somehow, so we got up, in the mountains, all these other people, and then, we, since that day, my mom, they found their body half a year later, and they found it before, but they had to identify something, and Alexandra-Anita is missing, and I say really missing because through many, many, other different reasons, what I'm writing in the book, I know that she is alive.
No, I can't even imagine going through that. But it was just interesting following along with you as you were explaining it, which leads to many questions. One of which is the movie Hereafter by Matt Damon. Have you seen it?
I did not want to on purpose because I have in my mind also a movie. So I want just to be my, everything free, because I have visions, pictures, how I would like to see it, but people told me about this movie, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very similar in that, not giving away because, on your own time you may watch it, but the lady was she was a news anchor, and she was in the tsunami. She had a near-death experience, and her life totally changed afterwards. So it was kind of like you could see, they're in a nice posh hotel and see the waves happening. It was really surreal. And I can imagine, going through it and not wanting to relive it. But very close to what you're saying, especially from a spiritual standpoint of you having that question, the individual question, as you mentioned. You said, well, it was just me asking that question, do I want to live? And you could only hear your voice. So were you imagining, at least for your daughter and your mother, that they went through similar scenarios that you had gone through?
It's difficult. It's kind of difficult to answer because I feel like every being on this earth comes with a unique story, and I don't know if they went through, but for my mom, who I know that passed away, it must have been a very, a very kind of shocking, traumatic, passing away, because it's unexpected. It's not like you are prepared for through whatever, you go through, being, sick or having somehow to go or just prepare. It was just it is like seconds, it's just, you are, and so I don't know if they did. Especially my daughter, it's in the book I explain a lot about her in a way how her whole being, was already these 2.5 years. She learned me so much. It was just unbelievable. And even people like in the office, when I brought her to the office, and some of them said, there was one guy who was, he was a hiker, just being out in the mountains, had no clue, was not interested in children. But he said, Miss Sana, next time you bring her, you really have to tell me because I need a picture. I need so much to make a picture of her. I need that this face is just speaking always to me, And it happened to so many other people. The couple who went with us on holiday, they just said, now we are going to have 2 weeks just for ourselves, It was like, and the son, the 24-year son of them, he passed away in the room beside me. So, life is just, yes, it just, for me, why I wrote the book, it's just like to remind that there is to prepare yourself in every moment to be connected to something which helps you through when it comes. When you really are in the crisis, then it's kind of like sometimes people just, if they are not kind of connected to something higher than what we think that we are, they become to this possibility to see themselves as a victim of the situation, which I honestly never ever felt.
What about the other side of it where you have survivor's guilt? You have something major that happens and you're like, well, why am I still here? There's the other side where people feel like, well, do I feel special? Or, why did they have the same choices that I did? I went through the same thing they did. And, why am I still here? Did you go through that period?
I never had this questioning myself because I felt like only like, okay, short after, I felt from the beginning on when this happened somehow after the next days and everything, I felt always like, a part of me, was being like, it's just, you are pain. Your whole body is pain. There is nothing it's just like, what is, your mind is going crazy because it's like, where is she? What's happening with her? Who is with her? Who is taking care? It's like you just like you can't go to sleep. You wake up and you feel like, what? There is another day? Where is she now? It's like boom. It's like your whole thought, and there, which is so caught in this whole struggle of somehow, and then there's another part who is like observer of the whole situation, and it's like it's this kind, what I said, like the prayer, who is saying every moment, it's like, guide me and surrender. With every inhaling, I was like, please guide me, please God. It was just like, and thank you for helping, and thank you for guiding me. It was always like, please, thank you, with inhaling and exhaling. It's like surrender to something. And it was interesting how much guidance I really got also. How people came in life, to support, So I went a little back from because like to tell you, like I think there is not to compare my story is less or more worth than another story. I feel it's a different story that I'm carrying. And I think also what I learned, and I believe, what I believe, it's maybe crazy when I tell it, but I'm so sure, that everybody of us comes with how to call, like a birth letter, what we ourselves wrote before we came, what kind of experiences in this life we are going to make. And we, of course, just kind of, forget or don't remember because we get so busy in life. But I'm so much sure that everybody comes with already written stories. How does it sound to you?
Well, I have to ask you if you're familiar with the author Robert Swartz.
No, I know.
Okay, you'd really like it, and I'll put it in the notes and I'll send it to you as well. He had written this book called Your Soul's Plan, and in the book I'll use one example. So there was this young lady, and she was deaf. She couldn't hear, and so she had gone to see him because what he would do. You have people like Dr. Brian Weiss who would do past life regressions and things like that. This wasn't necessarily a past life regression. This was just for this argument or for the book that there's your past life, and then there's a quote-unquote meeting that you have with your soul group. And so you are sitting and you're having a meeting, for lack of a better term, with all these people that you're going to incarnate. And as you were saying, you're going to, at 20 I'm going to go through this and go through that. So he had done this with the lady that was deaf. And so in her previous life, they did go back to her previous life. In her previous life, she was a child, and her mother and father always argued. I mean, they were not just your typical spats. They were kind of violent. And so at the end, she was hiding in the closet because it was one of those big argument flare-ups again, and her father wound up shooting her mother and killed her. And so in her mind at that time, she was like, I don't want to hear anything, right? Because she had that tied to that scene of noise being violent. And so by going through that, and then in the ante room, when she was having this meeting with her soul group, she said, okay, in this life, I plan to be deaf and not hear, and go through a number of other things. And the person or the entity that was her father in her previous life stood up in the meeting and said, there's nothing that I can contribute that for you to learn in this life. And so he sat down. He didn't incarnate in her current life. And so I totally agree with you with that. What you were saying, that there may be some level of precognition that we forget about, and there is some pre-planning that we forget about as well. And so I'll send it to you because I think you'll really like it because it's interesting listening to your story of how time just stood still. So it seems like time doesn't really exist when you're actually going through something.
Yes, I think you become everything at that moment, or every dimension. And why I'm saying also about that we come already with a written story is because like some months later I got a contact with a lady which is living here in Arab city, like 2 hours from Vienna. She's a professor of music, German. She wrote many school books, for German, and she's an actress actually, and she's like playing and then singing, still being on stage and everything. And her hand started to write 40 years ago. And she wrote the book, The Leading Hand, because through 40 years she wrote letters from the other world, from the spiritual world, to people and who came to her for help, people who had sick children, people who, somebody died, whatever. It was a very, very situation, a very hard situation for this. And I got in contact with this lady, and the message that I got, I just was so hard to agree, for me, or to, let's say, to accept, because I hardly wanted the girl back. I just I had been searching. Helmut and I, we went for half a year, back and forth. We went to Thailand, coming back, went to Thailand, coming back. We went, from house to house. I experienced so many people's lives. You don't, when you knock on the door and there opens, somebody, and it's a mother who shows you don't speak the same language, but she shows, you have a picture, of your daughter in the hand. The other lady shows her picture with the son who died in the tsunami. And it was so, so many experiences and so deep, connections. And at the same time, so we did a lot, because it was for me like I have to do everything possible, because the messages have been so, people after that saw her on a market in a village, because we have put, pictures out there and this and so, and this lady told she came through you and to be for you and to make a big change in yours and Helmut, your both life. But her purpose or her is to be with another family in another country, and at that time when it's right that you're going to meet again, it's going to happen, and there's nothing what you can force or do, nothing. It's just to allow that it is the way it is. It was very hard for me because the letters we got, and I have these letters in the book also, they have been, this lady, she did not know me before, and she wrote about Helmut and myself. I like she's knowing my whole life. So, and she said, this was your deal before you incarnated, that you're going through this, and everybody of us has a different lesson here.
Oh, absolutely. One other thing, since you didn't see the Matt Damon movie, it's multiple stories and how we all come together and how we're all connected. And I bring it up because I have a twin sister, and when she was pregnant, she had a lot of false alarms. But the one day that she had, thought she was really going to have the baby, I absolutely knew, and my niece was born. And so I think we all have some connection, especially someone really close to us, to know, if they're here or not. And so if you still have that feeling, it sounds like it goes right along the lines of what you were told in the automatic writing session.
Yeah. Yes, that's, I'm so sure about that there is one day. It's just, that time now, so many years later, it's easier, to speak about it. But I knew that time when it happened, I knew, I have to give this, I have to make, somehow, I was like, the question for me is like, how can I grow through a crisis like this? How can I really, give like the promise I gave to God or to myself, to my whatever, that I'm going to come back with being bigger than I came, and that's why I feel somehow, it's, we now are so busy world, we give like value to things which are kind of, yes, just how, well, maybe in that moment it's still, but then we just really lose ourselves in this third dimension, in a way of, and that's, I feel like I would like, to give, like a reconnect again with who you really are. And life then becomes like, this different, I feel myself like a bridge, when I wrote this book, it was like, giving a bridge from the third to the fifth dimension. Like, how can you walk from this to there and go back and forth and accept? Because it's not that we should like, the body is not important. No, yes. I mean, I became a yoga teacher. I'm an author, a yoga teacher now, and did lots of other things because I do appreciate life, actually.
I want to go back for a second when that particular day. And,
right.
When you, I guess we're in the waiting room, and you were between dimensions, and you were asked this question, do you want to live? And so there are some schools of thought that, before we incarnate, there are up to 5, there may be more, but 5 major times in our lives where we're asked that question. And you can either decide, yeah, I'm done with this life, or no, I'd like to continue. And I wanted to get your take if you've heard anything like that, because, like you said, with your mother, she took that as the time she may have been asked that question. She said, you know what, I'm good for this life, and see you next time around. Are you familiar with any of that thought process?
Yes, I think this was for me like a door to go, to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I felt, and also the next years, because I felt, so much pain, and sometimes I was just like, there have been many times afterwards that I felt like I would just like go. I would just like go. But then, what me held back was, my son. I just like, no, that's not fair, That's no way that you can just say, yeah, because you are to make even this choice. But I'm sure of that what you are saying. I believe in this, that we have this, time frames where we can choose either to continue or to leave. I believe this, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and let's talk about our siblings, or not our siblings, but children, right? There's a school of thought that children choose their parents, and so before they incarnate, they're in that same meeting room, and they're like, you know what, I want to live with this person because this is what I'm going to learn in this life, or I'm going to learn multiple realities. And have you thought about it from? It's just really interesting. No one could answer your question. Do you want to live? You had this. You only heard your voice. No one else could weigh in. So, have you tried the exercise of other people in your family? And it didn't necessarily have to be the tsunami, but just in life experiences since then, where they may be going through something, and you're like, well, that's their life plan.
As I speak open about how I think, I would say in my family, that people would believe that we come with something like this, and that we do have, this kind of concept about life, but none of them who would have been in the situation where they had to decide.
Here's another part of that question. So, most of us that we've interviewed in our podcast and just in regular life, it seems that some people can get this message really easily, and others will get the what we call the spiritual 4x4, where something is interpreted as catastrophic to learn that lesson. And what is your take looking back? Because you mentioned a number of times on this podcast about letting go. And so there's always a conversation of free will versus destiny, where we think we have control until something like this happens. What's your take now as far as people's willingness to understand their experience on their own time versus allowing everything to happen and realizing you're part of a bigger picture?
Yeah, I had actually I had a kind of thinking about this, but I had also to change it, because I realized that I would judge people who would not accept that to grow, to everything makes a sense, who would just let's say like this, who would, before they, make a choice to the better and go through pain, they would either accept to create, not conscious, but still, a sickness. Because denying to go through this. And for me, it was like, I came, with several people in confrontation in a way like, I so much believe that everything what happens to me, to you, to everybody has a meaning and wants to tell you. I mean, it's like soul, your higher self is speaking to you, because how otherwise? it has to give you a situation. It has to give you sometimes a sickness, a happening, whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, what are you choosing now? And I realized that so many people choose to be, more kind of a victim because it's easier. It's like, I don't want to take responsibility for this. It's like, and I had to work on myself to accept that that's just a choice you make, and it's not about me just because I make different choices to judge others because of their, but I can see that so many people would like to go there to escape pain. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
But you can't. You can't. At the end, you can't. There is nothing what you can escape. I have a very sorry to interrupt, but I have a very sweet story. When I went to India to learn how to suffer proper, I went through something because. Yes, it's like I did not know how to transform, the pain in myself. So I went to it's called an Oneness University, and there you actually learn really how to get this information out of yourself, because it's in your body, and you can't if you're not willing to sit with the emotion. It's just going to fall, because inside you, whatever you do, it's not going to. And so I really learned there how to suffer proper.
That's funny. Do you get a diploma for suffering properly?
Yeah, it was really interesting, because it's kind of it, and when it's just to sit with the emotions. So many tell us, you can't. You can't. If you can't feel, you can't heal. But so that's something, and it's. We are it's such a complex life, because then you hear this, and that's true, that everything from the time when you're in mother's womb until 6-7 years, everything what happens is your program, and you're going to, bring up in your life, all these stories. You will create stories to heal this, what you experienced through that time. But we just grow up and we stay, we become adults, but never mature.
And you're saying that to a bunch of homies, so we know that guys don't mature as quickly as women do.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't say anything.
Let me ask you, because third dimension is, another school of thought is that third dimension is full of contrast. So you experience the contrast to know what you really want. And when you go up a degree, let's say to fifth dimension, that it's not as dense as third dimension. So what you're focusing on manifests a lot more quickly. And so third dimension is actually a very graceful dimension, because like you mentioned, with your Freudian example of we're repeating what we've learned from birth to 7, and we get so many opportunities to relive and learn from it. I sometimes say that our guardians laugh at us, or they have a bunch of popcorn while they watch us stumble through the world, because this is what we chose to experience. And so there's no way to really judge anyone, because who knows how many times it took for us to get a certain lesson right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's totally true. And I don't think in this fifth dimension there is no time. So it's it's like you say, like, okay, this higher, they say when we kind of come back home, it's like I don't think that it's just everything will be good. Everything, whatever we did, will be good. It's like we made it. Hey, we made it. We went through it. Somehow. But it's just so sad that being here on Earth, it feels like when I go on the street and it's so touching when you look at people and you feel like they are just robots out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so numbness. There is this numbness. There is this disconnection between the mind and the heart. It's like, wow, it's just everything. And that's kind of like, it's just, it's just sad that it's because it could be different, but yeah, it's just I think it's changing.
Well, what if it's a hangover? I mean, we've all in our lives, if we're honest, have had a night of excessive drinking, and the next morning, oh my goodness, I drank too much. I mean, we're not in the third dimension when we make these decisions, so we're like, yeah, throw that in there too. Throw in 5 car accidents, throw in an airplane crash,
Yeah.
And then we're in third dimension, like, oh, what did I do last night? Did I really sign up for this?
Yes, it's exactly, because I don't want Mozart in my head, I don't want this concert to listen in my head. I just want to listen and it's, yes, you're right. It's so, but then it's like when we go up this high, it's like, okay, how much do we really step into life in the moment of whatever happens? Because for me, it became at the end, it's like, okay, we all look for happiness, joy, and this, and that's okay too. But at the end, it's like, if you have pain, I think in the spiritual world, where you have no body, it's like they would even appreciate, hey, how does pain feel? How does sadness feel? How does suffering feel? It's like, and when I realized, yeah, that's a point. I was thinking about this, that's a point, and I just look now also different to these other qualities, It feels like, wow, there is a possibility. I just can go through this, I can turn this. I can make, I can take from. It's possible to make this from going sad to feel joy because you embrace both. And don't, like, okay, I just want to be on this side.
Exactly. Along those lines, I want to ask you about your guardian angels, because you're talking about letting go. And so I used to listen to a lot of Abraham, and there was some instances where they were talking about Esther saying, well, I'm right, and she was arguing for her limitation. And their answer was, well, we don't go down to that level. So, as a human, you're allowed to go down as far as you want, as far as victimhood or righteousness or feeling that you're being right or being dogmatic. But it's such a low, dense feeling that your guides don't go down to that level. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how, because it seems, I can hear just in this hour so much growth that you've experienced. What's life like now where you once upon a time felt you had so much control, and now it seems like you have more of the art of allowing happening?
For me, it's now the play between the conscious play in a way of when I want to achieve something, I like and enjoy to sit and to go in the fifth dimension and to create it there and to see when it's going to happen like here. So it's like being really the creator in a body, being human and then just like playing this really like conscious creator being. And for me, it's like now I see it's like I'm so grateful, for having having a beautiful bed at night where I can have a safe home and something. So other things become so, just being grateful to see my son and to watch him playing soccer, to look at his eyes and just to see him without expecting that he has to achieve something. Just to enjoy his presence or other, friends' presence. It's a kind of like, wow, it's so. It becomes that I look more. I would say I look more from my heart now to people, because after the tsunami, I was so much in pain, but you could not really see it. And I was thinking, people would tell me, wow, I would not even think about that you went through something like this, because you don't look like. And so for me, it was like, what, you don't know when you looked into somebody. I was, asking myself, you never know what anybody is going really through. It's not the outside, just accept, and just like embrace. I mean, try it as much as you can. What you see is beautiful, without bringing your story and making, just creating a story about somebody. No. And this was a really big lesson for me, to look different to other people, and to just, be and enjoy them, and really, enjoy lots of, how to say, like, the life itself, the nature, going out, being everything, all these different seasons we have, so this getting up in the morning, being grateful that the body can move, that just to feel when you shower, to feel really that you shower, and somehow just the small things become so nice. And then so I'm just gratefulness. My heart is way much warm than, because before I was just a busy woman. I was career concentrated and so. And yeah.
Let me ask you the other side of that. So if you go to a nice restaurant and you order, and you're sitting there and you're enjoying the scenery and what have you, but it seems like the food is taking too long, right? And you want to go back there and you're like, where's my food?
So
I want to ask you, when you're creating in the third dimension, but it's not manifesting in the third dimension as quickly as you would like.
I'm not always patient. No, I'm not. But the point is, the difference is, I still observe that I'm not. It's also when you stand in the supermarket and there is such a line, to the cash, and I'm like, damn, But I can see, okay, Sana, you feel damn, like, it's this kind of. But I'm not. Yeah. It's just a game. It's not that. When I was hanging on this tree there, being naked, everything was gone. I was really like literally, I had, nothing, my life, there, and that's what. And then I promised myself, Sana, there's nothing in the world. There's no situation where you can feel like embarrassed or something, because look at you, Sana. But the point is, after a while, you forget actually, and you, get caught in these emotions somehow. And still, it's a training, It's still, But it was interesting for me when I said, okay, you promised you something self, but then you just, it's kind of a challenging. Yeah, it's life. Life.
No, I love it, and you have to be lighthearted about some of these things, because we're laughing, and some people may not be in that space when they listen to the podcast. Like, this should be so serious. It made me think of Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now, and he's like, shut up, be quiet, I'm trying to meditate. Like, it totally takes you out of the message that you're trying to get. So we're not taking ourselves too seriously here.
Yes, and at the same time, when somebody, you can see somebody is in pain, I have a deep respect. Because at that moment, every kind of smart advice, is not so helpful. I mean, for me, the most helpful were when somebody would just be there and, embrace my pain, and that's it.
One of your big takeaways that I really liked was, when you went back to Thailand and you went to other places, it sounds like you had some group support, too, of people that had gone through something similar. And I do want you to, you kind of glossed over it, but how important do you think it is to actually speak with a group that may be going through something similar?
Well, I had actually not really a group who went through something similar. It was just like because I went to Thailand on search, to look up in the mountains, for the girl. And there is nothing what you can. I had somebody who was a translator, interpreter, who would, because I don't speak Thai, and they would just say, okay, I would knock on the doors, I would go there because I got, I was kind of guided, but this is where I connected with people in a way who went and lost. Almost everybody in Khao Lak at that time lost a family member, because this was the place where the people went to find work. All the people who have been in this area, living, they looked, at some point to be whatever they could, in the hotels, from every level of possible, work. And so almost every family in this area lost somebody. So this is where you could really, without speaking the same language, but you could see we are just emotional beings. That's what it is. And, and there is something what connects us. It doesn't matter where we come from. What national is belief doesn't matter. It's just that at the end, it's what how you speak from your heart to the other person.
Yes. And one thing I like about some TV shows they have here in the States is they have this thing called separated at birth. And they have siblings or twins, and they were separated at less than 5 years old, and 40 years later they reconnect, and it's really interesting. They have the same type of spouse, they wear the same type of clothes, and so what it seems the overall message is that anything that's missing is temporary, either in third dimension or beyond. And so I wanted to at least highlight that because you still have the feeling that she's alive. So there will be some point where you two reconnect.
Yes, thank you for this. Thanks.
Absolutely. We are at the top of the hour. So I wanted to leave on that high note, and I also wanted to give you the time to talk about your website and where they can get the Borrowed Daughter book. Is it in audio form as well?
No, it's even not in English available. It's just in German. It's already translated, but I'm now just, looking for a publisher and, have some contacts, but not yet. So, and it's German-speaking people. It's everywhere. You can buy it in a bookstore, on Amazon, and on my website, I have a little bit about how I see the world, and kind of my way of looking at things. And, the link to the book, but it's just, like I say, it's German, and I hope to have it as soon as possible in English because, I believe it was like, for me, it's like when I give the book out and the world, can kind of, because when you read the book, you transform, that's for sure. But it was like, it's a gift to the world and universe, and I get a gift from the universe, and that's going to be my daughter.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you have just been tuned to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
Sana, it was a pleasure. Please stay in touch with us. Let us know when you get the book in English translation. We'll definitely push it out for you.
Thank you for having me with you, and thank you also to your audience for, being there. And lots of greetings from Vienna. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for checking out another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective podcast. Please check us out on our website at intrinsicmotivation.life, where you can click on the Speak Pipe button and leave any suggestions for future podcasts that you'd like us to cover. Also, check us out on our social media sites. We have a YouTube channel, Facebook page, iTunes podcast, in addition to Stitcher and Google Play, all under Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. Check you out next time. Have a great day.
Listen to Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective on Radio Public. It's a free, easy-to-use app that helps listeners like you find and support shows like ours. When you listen to our show on Radio Public, we receive direct financial support every time you hear an episode. Experience our show in Radio Public today by listening to the show link in our episode notes, and thank you for listening.